Hey, this is Millie and Sebastian. Today, instead of really walking you through a specific tab in Excel, I will instead be working on a Geometrics assignment, and the name of that one is Excel References. So if you want to follow along, you're free to do so. We'll walk through all 16 of the problems, and not all of them are in any one tab. A lot of them will come from formulas, but we'll see some review from, and by review I don't mean the review tab, I mean some older things such as from the page layout and one from the file, I believe. So let's get started. Number one, move the entire loan amortization schedule worksheet to this Excel 07 doc workbook located in your Geometrics folder and insert it after the time card worksheet in Excel 06. Okay, so the document we have open is Excel 06, and we need to open up this document right here. Well, this document here, Excel 07, move this worksheet into this workbook. So, of course, to open things, for opening and closing whole files, of course, we're going to go to File. And here we see the Backstage View. Let's go to Open and open up the file that we're trying to pull a sheet from. Then you're going to go to your Documents and Geometrics Templates, and 07's right there. Here it comes. And I am just going to right-click on it, and I'm going to say, let's move this worksheet. And remember, we had Excel 06 open. I'm just going to move it to 06 instead. All right, and where do we want to move it? After the time card worksheet. So if I click on time card, it's going to put this sheet before the time card sheet. So let's move it to the end so it moves it after. And there we go. Here we're back in 06, Excel 06, that document, and we have this sheet added after the time card worksheet. Perfect. That's just what we wanted. Next. All right, in the marketing budget plan worksheet, edit the cell range, reference research, have it only refer to the research types under the heading. All right, step one on any Geometrics problem, make sure you're in the right, first of all, right document, second, right worksheet. So we're in the right workbook or the right document because I see the right sheet. I see it right there, marketing budget plan, but I was in the wrong sheet. I was looking at the wrong one, so I just need to click here. And then we're going to go to formulas. And in formulas, there's a section called defined names. And defined names deal with groups of cells, such as grand total or anything that you can see right here. You can pull them all up by going to the name manager, and you can see every named range that you have in this workbook. And it's very useful by clicking on any one. It automatically highlights that group of cells, so you can do formulas with them, you can edit them as far as formatting all together at the same time. But to do that, you need to have made some, named ranges, so you could do define name. But for this problem, the name's already made for us. We just need to go back and edit it. So we're going to go to Name Manager, and we're going to go to Research. If I click on Edit, it's going to say, hey, currently it's called Research, and this is where it is. Let's see where it is. Okay, I see the marching ants, but that's not what we want it to be. We want it to only refer to the research types under the heading, so just these cells right here under the word research. So I don't want it to include all of this. So I'm going to delete all those cells, and voila, I click here, enter, and now that is the new range called research. Click OK. I'm brought back to this dialog box, and I can simply close it out. Now, watch this. If I go click on research, there we see that my editing worked. I am only now referring to these names here rather than all these cells as it was referring to before. Great, moving on. the budget plan chart worksheet, insert the values from the chart into the budget row of the table below. Okay, and that's really simple. You're just going to make sure you're in the right sheet, which we are, and insert the values from the chart into the row down here. Okay, so that's really simple. These values just go in the chart. So research, you look, and research is 0. And what I'm going to do to jump from cell to cell quickly rather than having to click every single time is I can click Tab to move to the next horizontal cell. So it brought me from B41 to to C41. Okay, communications 0, networking 0, event 35, promotions 10, advertising 38, public relations 17. After the last one, be sure you hit enter or tab or click away something, because Excel will not know that 17 is there until after you have moved your mouse, your selection tool elsewhere. If you leave that in there, you're going to get the problem wrong. So that's just a little pointer on this problem. Okay. These will hopefully get a little faster as we move on, as they get more repetitive. Okay, marketing plan, budget plan worksheet in cell E51. Now you can type E51 here, click enter, there we go. Insert a count if formula. So now we're actually getting into our first formula. And let's look at the multiple ways that we can insert a formula. One of the easiest ways is to use our little helper called the Formula Wizard. And we can access the Formula Wizard in multiple ways. One is to click this little button here, which is the Insert Function button. It'll bring us to the Formula Wizard. Or we could go to the actual Formulas tab and click this button, which is identical to this. Or we could search through all the functions and look for the count if function, which is going to be under logical, and it's not one of the mainly used ones, so then you're going to have to click this button, and it's also going to bring you to the same exact place. So there's a lot of redundancy here. So any way you choose to do it, get to this dialog box. Now, we're looking for the count if formula, so I'm going to do count if. Okay, there it is. I just had to search for it, and I'm going to click count if. And here's our real Formula Wizard. This is the part that helps us figure out what's going on or how to do this formula. So let's see what this formula wants us to do. Insert a count if formula to count the data in the cell range shown here that is greater than 0. So in this cell, we want to see how many of these cells are greater than 0. The first blank in our Formula Wizard it says range. So what does range mean? Range, we can read it right here. It's the range of cells from which you want to count the non-blank cells. So that range is where are we looking for stuff? Well, we're looking in this is the range right here. It tells us cell range, blah, 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 D43 to 51. So the range, let's go grab those cells. D43 to 51, and you just click and drag, click enter. Great. Now, criteria. That is greater than 0. Okay, so we're looking out of this range, how many of them are greater than 0? So our criteria is that the cell, in order for us to count it, it has to be greater than 0. So guess what you do? You just get to type greater than 0. You don't have to put anything in front of it. You don't have to say a certain cell is greater than 0. You just put greater than 0. And watch if you click away. It's going to show you the answer, 4. And that's what's going to show up in the cell once we're done. So click OK, and it shows 4. So if you're a little confused on that, we'll do some more formula-related exercises in this activity. And let's check and see if this answer was right anyway. So were there 4 cells that were greater than 0 in this range? Let's look. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that worked. The rest of them were equal to 0, so they're not going to be counted. Now, watch this. What if I change one of these cells to, say, 1? Notice how this cell updates to match. Now there are 5 cells greater than 0. But let me control Z to undo that. So we're back where we started. So that's our correct answer that the program's looking for, and let's move on. Okay, in the marketing budget plan worksheet, create a custom view named this that displays in page layout and has a custom zoom of 125. Well, this is simple. We need to go to view, put this in page layout view, put it in a zoom of 125, and that's going to have to be custom because there's not a 125. And then once we've done that, we want to save this as a custom view. So you go to custom view, you're going to add one, you're going to name it layout 125, and I'm not going to change any of the settings because it didn't tell me to. Okay, and now watch, if I go to custom views, there's my custom view that I just made. We've created one and it's saved, and I can use it in other worksheets that I make later. Perfect. Okay, in the profit loss summary worksheet, that's right here, in cell D8, okay, you can click on D8. Remember, you can always type right here, though, in the name box. Use the if function to show close if the sum of these cells is greater than 22,500 and not close if it's less than 22,500. Okay, so this is an if formula. We want to show in this cell, we want it to say the word close if these cells add up to greater than this number. Okay, and if it's not, well, if they don't add up to greater than that number, then we want it to say not close. So we're doing like an estimation. We're getting Excel to do some math for us here. So let's do this. Let's go to the formula wizard, and we are going to go to the if formula. And if you don't see it, you can always type it in there, and it pops up really quickly. Click on if, and here's our wizard to help us. The wizard is just the name of this dialog box. Remember, nothing intimidating. So the first thing, logical test. That's what are we asking ourselves when we're doing this formula? Well, we're asking ourselves, is the sum of these cells greater than 22,500? That's what we want to know. And if it's true, then we want it to say this word. And if it's false, we want it to say these words. So the test is the sum greater or less? Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to type in sum of, and to put of, I'm going to put it in parentheses, and then I'm going to do C9 colon D9. So I'm looking at the sum of those cells, and I'm going to say greater than 22500. So really, I'm putting this formula, because this is a little formula right here, inside of the if formula. Okay, now if it's true, I want it to say close. Oop, I hit enter a little early. Sorry about that. Let's go back and fix that. Okay, and if it's false, I'm gonna do not close. Okay, that's it. And obviously it must have been greater because they put close. Awesome, that is it. In the income worksheet, all right, we're not in the income worksheet, use the fill tool to move the sum formula that's in this cell to this cell. So we want to move this formula. There's a formula in G34, and I can see the formula. If I wasn't clicking on it, I wouldn't know this is a formula. I would think, oh, maybe they just typed this number into this cell. But once we click on it, we can see, oh, actually, no. It's a formula composed of the sum of a bunch of cells. And what I want to do is copy that formula into this cell. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go where I want the formula to be, which is here in H34, and I want to copy it, the whatever's next to it in G34, I want it to copy to the right. So I click on H34, go to the Home tab, And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fill to the right, and it just scooches it over, and now I can see, look, I made a formula in H34 that matches the one in G34. It's that simple. All right, in the expenses worksheet in cell D46, I'm going to type that in, D46. And use the sum formula to get the sum of the cell range shown right here. Well, this is easy. Use our wizard. Make sure you're in D46. Bring up the wizard. I'm going to type in sum right here. Click go or enter. And there it is. There's the sum. Double click. And what do we want the sum of? Well, it already guessed what we wanted, and it guessed correctly because it said, hey, you probably want these numbers that are right on top of this cell. Well, they were completely right. And if you're not sure or if it didn't work for you, just click on the little selector tool right here, and you can always go and highlight the ones you want. Now, just make sure, look what happened when I clicked and highlighted. It kept the previous cell reference, and then it added on the new one. Make sure this isn't what's going on. If you want to change your cell reference, if you want to select a new group of cells, just make sure the old one's gone first and that you're not adding together two groups of cells. So there we go. That's exactly what we wanted for the problem. And I can hit enter. Got to hit enter. Don't just click and then run off to the next problem. And then click enter again so that the formula has updated. And there we go. That's it. Okay, this is a theme problem, so this is very much a review, something we should have seen before. If you're not sure, go to my page layout video for Excel. And we need to make sure we're in the annual sales worksheet, and we just want to change the theme. So go to page layout, themes, Austin. Remember, they're in alphabetical order, real simple. And that is it. Next. Okay. In the June worksheet, in these cells, use the if formula to display a 1 if something's true, and then a 0 if it's not. And what the statement we're looking for is, are these cells greater than 2,500? This is one of those cases where I don't want to think about all these cells at once. I'm not going to put the formula in all of these all at once. I'm just going to deal with one cell, and then I'm going to copy it to the remainder, to all the other cells in the range. So here's what I'm going to do. I want this formula to show up in E4 through E33. So let's just worry about E4. Then use our wizard, and we already know how to do the if formula, and we're going to test. We're not going to test this whole range. We're just going to test if D4, so click on D4, and we want to see is it greater than 2,500. Cool, that's it. That's our logical test, and it's already showing me it's true because look, this number is greater than 2,500. Now, read the rest of the instructions. If this is true, I want it to say 1. If it's false, I want it to say 0. Now, of course, this cell's going to say 1 because this is true, but for other cells, when I copy this, it's going to say 0 because they're not all greater than 2,500. Now, click OK. And there it is. And you have a few options available to you. You could, I guess you could copy and paste if you really wanted to do that. But the autofill handle is so convenient here. You can click it, and remember, you have to see that special cursor. You have to be at the bottom right of the cell. You got to make sure you're still selecting E4. And you can do the click and drag. I'm going to do the double click, and it's going to automatically bring us to the bottom of the page, copying those cells all the way down. Now, here's the only problem. It took me all the way to E34. I didn't want to go that far. I only wanted to go to E33, so I'm just going to roll it back 1. So I go back to the autofill handle, bring it back 1. There we go. It's copied that formula into every cell. Perfect. Change the theme to office. That's very, very easy. There we go. Okay, in the annual sales worksheet, in cell B17, where's B17? Right here. Okay, B17, use the COUNTIF to count the number of times that the values in this cell range exceed 5,000. Exceed means to be more than. So we're going to use COUNTIF to see if these cells are more than 5,000 or not more than 5,000. And we're going to count how many of them exceed 5,000. Or more than 5,000. So go to B17, grab the wizard, and we're going to do COUNTIF. You can search for it if you need. Okay, the range, that's where are we looking? Which cells do we care about? So just make sure your cursor's right here. Go and grab the right cells. And cool, that's great. Okay, and then go to criteria. And we want to know, are they greater than 5,000? So just type in greater than 5,000. Okay. That should do it. And then you can just hit enter just to make sure, but it should have already worked when you hit, when you close that dialog box, as long as you hit OK and not cancel. So there it is. And there are 7 of these that exceed 5,000. You can read through the numbers, check that it worked, but that's it. That's correct. Okay. In the product worksheet, we're already there. Insert a line sparkline. Okay, we know that's in the Insert tab. And we're going to put it in F33. So go to F33. We're going to put a line sparkline. Okay, now we want it to reference the data in cells B33 through E33. Okay, so through, that means B33, C33, all the ones in between from here to here. So you can put your cursor here and just click away. You could have used this tool. You could have even typed B33 colon E33. It's completely up to your whim, whatever makes you happy. And you click OK. And there it is. Perfect. That's the little line sparkline showing a graph of these numbers in this cell. Number 2, use the autofill. Remember, that's our little buddy when you click at the bottom right here. And you're going to copy that sparkline from this cell. And this is kind of weird. You're going to copy it upwards. And that's okay. It's a little unconventional, but, that's fine. You just want to start here and you say, oh, that looks good. Let me put it in all these other cells. So you just copy upwards up to F8. Is that F8? That is it. Okay, so we have all sorts of graphs. Each one refers to the data that's next to it. So in this cell here, F22, it's referring to the cells next to it and not any of the other data. Okay, once you've done that, head on to the next problem. Oh, okay, this problem is a little bit tricky, but nothing that's impossible. So in the top performers worksheet, determine the highest sales number for 2010 in cell B2. All right, first rule, make sure you're in the right worksheet. And B2. All right, so you want to show the highest sales number for 2010 in this cell. Well, that's great, but there's no data here. Well, where do you think the data for 2010 is? It's in the 2010 worksheet. So we're going to do something where we're referencing information that's in a different worksheet, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You just have to be careful. So click on the wizard, and to look for the highest sales number, you're going to click max. Okay, so we're looking for the maximum number. That's what the highest is. Now, once you have the wizard open and you have your cursor ready to go in the correct blank right here, you're going to go to 2010. Now, notice how it doesn't really look like anything changed, but you did change worksheets. And you're going to say, all right, I want to see which amount of money is the highest, who sold the most. So you click on these cells right here, and notice those numbers popped into the wizard over here. And the only difference from formulas that we've done previously, remember on previous ones, we only saw the cells because we were talking about cells that were in the worksheet we were working with. Now this time, we're not, so it's going to say, hey, those cells aren't in the same worksheet. They're in the one named Sales 2010. And that's it. That's the only difference. You don't have to worry about anything else, about telling it to go look in this worksheet. It did all the work for you when you clicked on this worksheet right here. Once you're done, click OK. And it jumps back to top performers. It shows us that, yeah, our formula worked. We showed the highest number from these cells. So if you see it saying 100,320, then yeah, you did it right. And that matches up perfectly with the data that we were looking at. Great. Let's hit next. Okay. We only have 2 more problems to go. Okay. Next, in the top performance worksheet, we are back to this again. This is the same type of problem. This time we're just going to put in B3, we're going to put the 2011 highest number. So exact same problem, just different set of data. Okay, we're going to go to 2011. We're going to say who sold the most, or what amount was the most. And there it is. This time it's a little more. It was 130,000 and some change. All right, that is it. Last problem. All right, this is probably the trickiest problem here, but it's not going to be that hard if you follow my steps. So in the summary worksheet, we're already there. Determine the total units sold by flavor for each quarter based on the values in the 2009 sales worksheet and the 2010 sales worksheet. Okay, so we have the ice cream sold, and it's shown in these 2 sheets. Okay, so we have, notice they're the same order. It starts off with red hot chili chocolate for both years, and then sour tart sherbet. Okay, so we have the same list of data, but it's just shown for 2009 and then 2010. And in the summary worksheet, we want to take that data in the 2 sheets and just add it up. So once again, we're doing a formula that references data in a different sheet. And this time, it's going to actually reference it in multiple sheets. But that's not a problem. So let's go to summary. And I'm just going to click on B3. So click on B3, pull up your good old wizard, and I'm going to look for a sum formula, because a sum formula will add up the contents of other cells. It's just addition. It's real simple. So click on go. There's sum. All right, what are we going to add up? Well, I want to add up, now careful here, just click on 2009, and we want to add the first quarter red hot chili chocolate, so click on B3. Now, I'm going to hold down the shift button, and I'm going to click 2010 sales, and then I'm also going to click B3 again. And I realize this is a little confusing, but just roll with me here. Once you've done that, hit enter. It brings you back to the summary worksheet, and you should see the number 66. Okay, and so what you have done, you have added up this 23 that was in the 2009. You've added up the 43 that was in the 2010. You've smacked those 2 together, and your answer's 66. Now, it appears that when you did the process of this problem, I know it looks like you clicked on this sheet twice. And yes, I realize that's very confusing, but what you actually did, you were telling Excel to go to 2009, take this number, and then remember we held down shift, and shift says I want you to go from this cell to this cell, and it was adding them together in a way that kind of links them in Excel's memory. So it's saying 2009, that cell B3 always goes with 2010 B3. And it worked. You got the right answer. Now, we need to fill out the rest of this, but do we have to go and do the formula wizard about 40-something times to fill all these cells? Absolutely not. You are going to use that autofill tool, click on B3, copy it sideways, and leave those cells selected, and then just copy it down. And your job is done. All these are adding up the correct cells from 2009, 2010, and putting them together. So you have one nice big spreadsheet here that tells you for both years how much ice cream did you sell in the first quarter, caramel cheese or cheesecake caramel. This is why Excel's so amazing and really useful. All right, we have gotten to the end of this assignment. I hope you found this video useful, and you can check out, let's check out our score first of all. We got a perfect. All right, check out my other videos on Excel, Word, and PowerPoint, and thank you for watching.